Welcome, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745, and I hope you're all a fan of Hearts of Iron 4. And if you're not already a fan of the World Ablaze mod, maybe you'll become one as we take a look at this. This is going to be a setting up, getting started type episode. We're going to go through these various economic changes, so both you and I understand them, because they do change the game in, I would say, mostly good ways. And so we will be taking looks at all of that. All right, World Ablaze is a historical total overhaul mod that changes almost all of the game mechanics, expands them, and adds a tougher AI. The mod is meant to be run alone. Only cosmetic music and official submods will work properly when enabled alongside. Yeah, we're just playing with World Ablaze. Missing 2 of the DLCs even to play this mod, so watching is all I can do for now. Okay, now I am not sure. I have, I think, all of the Holiday Punch here are saying that I'm missing 2 of the DLCs to even play this mod. So maybe Holiday Punch has looked into it. I have, I think, all of the main DLCs for Hoi 4 except the Balkans one. Now, do realize, and this is, I'm going to say again, I don't know specifically for, and Uncharted is the main developer, is not here, and you can check with their forum on Discord. I would say would probably be best if you're needed, because there's both what Paradox releases is both a paid DLC that adds things like new focus trees, and then there's free mechanics. Now, I don't know, maybe the spies are one of the ones that may be required for this. I don't know what is required. Waking the Tiger, No Step Back, and Man the Guns. Okay, so maybe it does use the actual parts of the DLC and not just the free parts of the free DLC versus the paid DLC. So I do not know Holiday Punch, and yeah, and some of those things, some of those DLCs are getting cheaper, so which helps by it. Most of the changes are easy to notice. Okay, so we're going to be looking here. And I've taken a brief look at this before this, but not played any of it. And I already have comments to make. Okay. Economy fatigue. I would say it's economic would be probably. Economy fatigue is a new system to World Ablaze. Spot already had Walking the Tiger. Okay. System to World Ablaze. It represents inflation, large government spending, and shrinking civilian economy. Economic manpower and trade laws now greatly provide economy fatigue, which reduces construction speed and eventually stability and factory output. They also give a weekly penalty to war support to combat this. There are more decisions and ministries you can invest in. The best strategy is to make your wars quick and demobilize after the war. It is natural to have economic fatigue when militarizing your economy, and it should not be something you should try and keep at zero. The following are the main ways decreasing economic fatigue. Focuses: war bonds available when at war. Decisions: most are available only when at war. Lowering your laws only as last resort if close to 100% economic fatigue. Stay on partial mobilization will cause your fatigue to go from 0 to 100 in 24 years. Okay, war economy is 12 and total mobilization is 6. Be aware that focuses can also increase fatigue. All right. This is one area that I have in Uncharted. Again, I like Uncharted. This is not a personal attack. Sometimes internet beef can be good for both sides, but this is not something like that. I've talked to him about this. And he is not wrong. In fact, I think he's correct in economic fatigue. Now, I look at this game, Hearts of Iron 4, or Hearts of Iron, shall we say, more so than maybe Hearts of Iron 4, but Hearts of Iron to be a 10-year span of a game that starts in 36, with a war starting close to the end of 39, the beginning of 1940, lasting until approximately 1946. That should, determine success or failure in the game. And hello, Arno. Good to have you here. So, not a 20 or 30-year game, playing into the 1950s, into the 1960s or something like that, but playing for that 10-year from approximately 1936 to approximately 1946. Either the Allies should be defeating Germany by 1946, or Germany, if doing very well, is maybe not conquered America or something by 1946, has basically won the game by that point. In that time frame, and he does talk about like war bonds and decisions and various other aspects to reduce your economic fatigue. I will say most nations by 1945 were economically exhausted. So he's not wrong, but I just don't think that this should be a major factor in the game that I described. Again, if you're looking at a 12 years of war or 24 years of war, yeah, he's right. If we're talking sort of an endless war here. Hey, Niagro. We'll talk about crisis report some other time. It's going to continue, don't worry, but don't want to get into it right now. So, and I don't, and they talk about as the fatigue grows in your nation, it disrupts things. And I don't know, whether it's building new factories or it's, producing tanks. I don't know that is a real factor. At least I don't think it is. But so this is one area that I think is not terrible, but not an area that I'm entirely in agree with. Hello, amazing Greg Digger? Is that, I have that right, Greg Digger? Thank you. I will try to have a nice stream. Okay, changes to the industry. Let's take a look here. Okay, military and civilian factories had their output halved, but in return you get double the amount of said factories. For most nations, naval dockyards and military factories require coal, while civilian factories require one steel. Now, I very much agree with this. I think the game improves with a more granular industry count, in that I don't need to, shall we say, buy as, you need to use X number of, one factory gets you 10 imports or something like that of a particular thing. It's changed over time. But you only need 5 of them. Well, why am I wasting a whole factory on 5 whatever, imported it would be better to have it more granular, and I think that that's the way to go, is make, and I think that's a very good change. But okay, Niagara, I understand. Keep supplied. So I agree with this change to the game, very much so. Steel versus coal, we could talk about, but we'll see. To accompany this, the max civilian construction count is 20 for each new building. Right. New resources have also been added, which include bauxite, coal, and iron. Yes, steel, which is a combination of coal and iron, is a product, and aluminum, which is a product of bauxite and massive amounts of electricity. You need electricity, not just heat. It's specifically electricity that is used in the process of transmuting bauxite into alumina, then into aluminum, the metal. So I'm not sure how much that helps the game versus just having aluminum and steel production in the game, but it's not wrong. It's not wrong. I just sometimes, is the granularity an improvement or just a complication? I'm not sure. We'll see in playing this how I feel. 3 new buildings to accompany these resources. Aluminum smelter uses bauxite and coal to make aluminum. Yeah, I guess coal you're using in essence to generate electricity. Hydropower aluminum smelters use bauxite to produce aluminum, but are more expensive than aluminum smelter. Okay, so water powered like dams. Excuse me. Steel mill uses iron and coal to produce steel. Infrastructure also no longer boosts the amount of steel and aluminum you get from a state as they come from these factories. I want to go back because I also wanted to look at changes to the tech tree here. Each major nation has a unique tank, air, navy, and artillery tech tree that all have their historical stats for their equipment. Minor nations who have the generic air and artillery tree have worse stats than their major nations. Minor nations excuse me, I don't know why I'm coughing so much here. Minor nations also do not start with generic tank tree anymore and rely on major nations for tanks via decisions. That is historically correct. So generally speaking, anything that's historically correct, I think, is a good thing. Certain tanks have multiple variations in the tech tree, such as the Panzer IV. Switching production between these variants result in very little loss in efficiency. Very, very good. Ships unlock their historical modules already attached, leaving little to be refitted and researched. They also have split into historical archetypes. The new edition specialized. The following frigates are very effective against submarines. Heavy cruisers are effective against light ships, and light carriers are cheaper. Okay, my comments on this, and this setting up is also, shall we say, a basic starting review of World Ablaze mod. I prefer this method of setting things up, meaning giving Germany its historical like tank tech tree or aircraft tech tree, with, I would include the realistically considered alternatives that Germany was considering. Things like Germany's thoughts on making we'll call it a copy of the T-34. It really wasn't, but it was something closer to a T-34 than a Panther, for sure. Now, the other way, you know, I don't like forcing nations to make the same mistakes that they made in World War II, for particularly the players' nation, I should say, historically. The players' nation, we're not talking about AI. So, is it wrong to force Italy to have the Italian tank tech tree, or give them alternatives? Italy could have made other decisions. Italy chose, and I say by Italy, it's more than just Mussolini. Mussolini was never fully in charge of Italy because there was a king, he had power. He, in essence, orders the arrest of Mussolini eventually. So and the Royal Army was very much a Royal Army and not a fascist army. So he was in charge mainly, but not, 100%. And Italian industry, particularly Fiat Onsando, those are two companies that were working together to produce the tanks of Italy, did not simply want to make copies of German tanks. They wanted to design their own. I don't think that they were set up properly to do the welding that the German tanks required. I think that's part of it. That's why you see Italian tanks always using rivets to the end. So I think some of it is production capabilities, and not that they couldn't produce a Panzer IV or a Panther. It's they weren't set up to, and the disruption to switch over to that would have been very great. There's reasons the nations chose what they chose, but then there's good reasons to go down other paths. But I like this, just as a play style. I like this. Okay, so we like the historical types. Combat width has been changed from 100 to 90, making the ideal division have 30 combat width. Keep that in mind, everybody. Rough terrain uses 20 combat width. Weather and terrain are much harsher. Organization takes longer to regain and is dependent on infrastructure and supply levels. Their supply lasts 10 days instead of 3 days. Oh, okay, so supply lasts, I guess, presumably when you're out of supply, lasts 10 days instead of 3 days. New units have been added, and the descriptions for unique ones can be found below. Armored cars are split between combat and scout. Combat cars are generally have equal armament to light tanks, but are cheaper and less durable. Scout cars provide org and can be used as recon. They also wield, assault guns. They have much more armor and soft attack than self-propelled guns, but have less breakthrough in defense. Heavy units currently field guns and infantry have heavy variants. These are much better. But cost more and are slower and take more supply. Miscellaneous. There are also a hard cap of 10 carriers per battle. Death stacks have been heavily nerfed. For these are for fleets. I was wondering if these are like Brengen carriers or something, but no, fleet carriers. Number of screening required is now 4 instead of 3 for ships having double the penetration. So we've looked at that. So now we understand how they've changed some of the game. I think, consumes 2 iron, 1 steel. Let's start with just a few civilian factories. So now I know we have a deficit, so we're probably going to trade, but we'll just start with a few of those. We'll have to look at maybe either activating or dealing with more Resource factories, steel and aluminum. Okay. Now we're started here with concentrated industries and not dispersed industries, or as what this is looking at, balance. I think, and I don't know, this is concentrated industries is definitely in the American/Soviet playbook. Britain, I would say, is dispersed industries, and I would also say Germany was. So I don't understand that decision. Maybe, I don't know if Uncharted will ever watch the video and respond. Why they picked that one. There may be a good reason for it. Now, I did look before, and to say get a new class of destroyers here needs active sonar researched. So to unlock, again, active sonar, over here, new class of submarine, basic submarine fuel tank. So we need to unlock decimetric radar for that type of submarine. So we need to unlock some of the technologies. Why not? I should be on kick.com right now. I should be live there. I'm pretty sure that I am. And Facebook is just simply I can do 5, and I've got 5 with Kick. So I'm trying to be a maybe it's, yeah, looks like it's working here. Trying to see if I think Kick's going to fail as a streaming service, but if there's anybody watching it now, I'm sort of hoping that I'm easier to find there. Okay, so we need to do active sonar. Let's look. Okay, 1936. Well, I'm checking Kick. Okay. Well, I set this up to happen, but I guess somehow it's not happening, Arno. Thanks for letting me know. I'm not going to dig into it right now. The Kick isn't working right. I thought it was. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, okay, Kick isn't working. It's just, it's new. It's in alpha or whatever, very early beta. Okay, so we're going to research Panther 2s. Yeah, like I say, I've gotten very little interaction on Facebook. Basically none other than you, Arno, there. So, not that I don't want to do Facebook, I definitely do. But it's just wanting to try other things. Okay. Now I have to look into it for sure, but I thought the Panzer IIs were starting production in the beginning of 1936. I'm pretty sure they were. So I think this is wrong. I think we should have, because I remember looking up. It's been a long time. Are you going to make Panzer One variant? We could research some of those, but right now I want to get to Panzer Two. If memory serves, and it's been a while since I looked this up. Basically, I looked it up in one of my books way back when, before Hoi 4 came out. And in my opinion, it should be, Panzer 1 should be fully in production, fully worked up as, efficiency, start at the beginning of 36. And at the beginning of 36, you should have the Panzer II models ready to go. So, meaning they had done the prototyping and whatnot prior to that point, and you can decide to either keep Panzer I's in production, or switch to Panzer IIs, or add a production line of Panzer IIs and keeping Panzer I, do both. That should be your choice at this point. So that is a little bit historically incorrect as far as I know, and again, historically incorrect is not good. Now we can grab the 222. I like the 222. It's a nice balanced four-wheel reconnaissance vehicle. Okay, there are 3 choices currently. The 4-year plan, which is 21 days. Now the 4-year plan doesn't come in, I think, until like around August of 36, just to give you a general date on that. I think it's August, but it's second half of 1936. The Rhineland, okay, and that does happen about, a few months into 1936. So, historically. Now, I did see in here, and this is, compared to some things, not too big of a tree, but it seems to be a rather well done. Hello, Max Zombrex, how you doing? Now, okay, proclaim the Axis power, 14 days. Neutral assistance. Where I saw the Olympics is in here somewhere. Like I say, I looked around this a little bit, but have not played it. I do like the icons. The icons are looking good. Oh, here. Okay, so that's after here. Okay, and that's of course in July is when that happens. So we're going to start with doing this. All right, so we have that. Now, one major plus for Uncharted and the dev team for World Ablaze is that they've at least to some degree filled the cabinet. I very much don't like Paradox's, blank slate start for games. That you've got to, over time, fully fill the cabinet. Now, I agree with the idea that boy, why do I blank on names? Dawn, Podcat, now that I remember, I do know who I'm talking about, wanted to put political power in, so you're not just min-maxing, sort of with the idea of constantly changing, policies or personnel are disruption to the government. I agree fully with that. But I would start with the historical personages that best fit the start of the game. This is wrong. In 1936, Joachim von Ribbentrop was the ambassador to England. Constantine von der Rath was the foreign minister in 1936. So these two should be switched at start. I don't, we can talk about which one is better than the other, but Konstantin van Roth he only left the position in 1938 when Ribbentrop was appointed. So that is a bad, incorrect thing to start with. So that should be switched, I think, entirely. Interior Minister, which is often seen as, in Europe, a sort of the Interior Police Minister. Wilhelm Frick is not a bad choice in 36 as one of the people. Himmler wouldn't be a bad choice. Now this formed Waffen SS. This is where I disagree, because the Waffen SS is not an interior ministry type functionality. I would have him available now. So, as your interior minister, possibility. Now, economics minister. This is getting a little complicated here because they've added transport minister. I've not seen transport minister as being a common and major position. I'm not saying they don't exist. You know, the minister in charge of the railways out of a nationalized railway nation. You know, I think France was pseudo-nationalized. I don't know, but you know, might very well have somebody that would be called the transportation minister. This to me looks like, because I've quickly hovered over some of these. You know, this is railway. Paul Frere. I don't know. I got to look into it. I would have the German railway guy, which I'm pretty sure is not Paul Frere, railway production guy. But I have to look into that a little bit more. Organization Todt did have a transportation element to it, but it was minor. It was mostly a construction element, and as Speer's increased empire, shall we say, definitely increased transportation. But most of the transportation elements that he was increasing were doing truck transport, particularly for the Luftwaffe. This does, in essence, give the ability to have two economically based ministers. I've just always read economic minister because this is a war game. Now, war is a political, political act, so politics matters in war. As sort of, if you will, production minister. From what I've seen, Julius Heinrich Doppler was in charge of the Ministry of Transport. Okay, I'm going to look up some of these people. I have not yet. Thanks, Holiday Punch. Like I say, I'm not saying that Ministries of Transport didn't exist as a title, because this is Railroad Enthusiast. Sort of picturing him, and I don't know that I would remember his name. Let me look it up here. Yes, Gamer is going in. There's a bit of controversy on there. Does use Wikipedia at time, but Who was in charge here? I'm just... The guy in charge of the German railway locomotive production is what I'm trying to quickly... Krieg locomotive. The one thing they sort of did in the American style. Looking on Wikipedia, but well, let me just respawn. Well, maybe this isn't the time to try to dig into it. Hey, thanks for following. Do appreciate it. Like to get more people here. Okay, no, I'll look into this some other time. Just who I'm thinking of. So, not a bad idea to have two slots that deal with industry and production. I don't know if I would make these sorts of choices here. Now, hello, Pan Karki? I don't know. Como está? I really don't speak Spanish, Pan. All I did was their transport minister in Germany, and they popped up. Yes, but yeah. And Ragar's here. How you doing? Intelligence minister. Okay. Now here, I guess they're throwing in Joseph Goebbels. This is, we don't know where, this is I'm summarizing here, or putting in, this is, Joseph Goebbels is an important minister. We don't know what slot to put him in here. So let's throw him in here. I probably, if you're looking at interior minister being able to be something other than police type ministers, I would have put him here as opposed to putting them here. I would have included for intelligence minister, Wilhelm Canaris is definitely a good choice here. I would have added Reinhard Heydrich, and I'd have to look up the guy's name who succeeds him as foreign intelligence person for the SS as an alternative. I would do that. And political advisor, yeah, I get this as sort of being a catch-all. And then this is maybe where you could put the idea of Goebbels here instead. Yeah, historically, of course, well, Deputy Fuhrer was Rudolf Hess. He leaves, they don't replace him as Deputy Fuhrer, but in essence, Chief of Staff. Deputy Fuhrer within the party, and the party and the government were an ever-merging thing as time goes on. Good, better in English, okay. Yeah, he was propaganda. Yeah, Goebbels was propaganda minister. If you want to look at, yes, a lot of, in Europe, a lot of the term the ministry, an interior minister as being the head of the police. In the U.S., there is a sort of interior ministry. I'm exactly blanking on what it's called, but it sort of deals with forestry and other sort of interior type issues. And yes, there are like some policing elements, like for the National Forest, but it's not the FBI or the Attorney General in America. It's sort of separated out. So if you wanted to sort of do interior minister as being sort of a ministry that deals with interior, not foreign ministry, not war, not spying, not some of these other things, I could see that as a catch-all. I could also see political advisor as being something like put in Joseph Goebbels instead. So I could see that as shifting. And I will totally grant the idea that whether it's National Socialist Germany or the United States, they have different structures, and none of them are going to all fit neatly into a basic package. That's going to be the same for all nations. So you sort of, I'll grant, whether it's the mod makers or Paradox, grant you can't always piece it together 100% right. I'm just evaluating what I'm seeing here. What's Ragar saying? I feel like granddad because I have to rest in bed twice a day. I spend too much time by trying to look at current problems in Eastern Europe. Still think it can escalate into eventually. Well, I don't think I think we have the current war in Eastern Europe contained within roughly the boundaries of Ukraine. So I hope it won't spread beyond that. Heydrich actually had a couple of replacements, one of them being Ernst Kaltenbrunner. That's one of them, but he was more, I think, interior. I'm thinking Ostland SS guy. Schellenberg, I think, is the name, or something very similar to that. Holiday Punch. And I'm just going off memory here. Schellenberger. Yes, because Reinhard Heydrich was wearing multiple hats, if you will, including some that were effectively supposed to be done in Berlin at the time of his death, and some down in Prague where he was killed. So yeah, Kaltenbrunner takes over some of it, but I'm thinking Schellenberg. So you start throwing a few names at me, and I start remembering things like names. Just if you're somewhat new around here, I can divide the world into math and not math. And math is things very formulaic, like spelling or whatever. I'm good at the not math, so I know history, but I don't necessarily know historical dates. I know it sort of that. Otherwise, Herman and Kurt Delig, Karl Hermann Frank. Well, Karl Hermann Frank sort of takes over, I believe, mostly in Czechoslovakia. He was they're all a bunch of evil bastards, but he was a particularly nasty one. Now, what I find sort of interesting here is that they don't have a war minister, defense minister, whatever you want to call him, in the cabinet. I find that very interesting choice to make, because this is a war game, a war-focused game, if you will, that has a political element to it. So they don't have that. And I've noticed particularly, again, I like that they have some of these slots filled. I wish they were all the ones that should be filled. And like a clear one that not filled would be an Austrian naval one. Yes, I know there were Austrian and Hungarian naval. Yes, I know the Hungary is led by an admiral. Now you might want to try to fill it if you get some coastline and you're actually building ships as either one of those nations, but that's something that probably wouldn't be filled at start for those nations. And which the Luftwaffe was around in 1936, but if you were starting a little earlier, you might not have a chief of the Air Force at the start of the game, but I would at this point. Frank wasn't that Uzi lackey who did what his leaders wanted. Okay, Karl Hermann Frank was the deputy to Seyss-Inquart, the and the number 2 guy in the Sudeten German movement, shall we say, who was also an SS member. That's who Karl Hermann Frank was. You're thinking of another Frank. I'm forgetting his first name. Yeah, well, not in the late 40s. You're thinking late 30s, maybe Holiday Punch. But I think they officially announced it before this time. Yeah, I'm pretty. Yeah, no, they already had announced the Luftwaffe as being in existence in 36. For free as a promo, it's a decent strategy game. Playing Ada or Genesis. Okay, don't know the game. Might be good. Now, ministries is what they're calling here are just things like called Ministry of Culture. That sort of works basically women's role in society. Ministry of Defense is just war bonds, it looks like. Ministry of Propaganda, just, I guess, the amount of propaganda being used. Ministry of Labor is tax cuts, mandatory, okay. Ministry of Business is where you specialize your political ideology here. Of course, we're National Socialism. And this is the economic fatigue element in the game. The guy that was in charge. Yeah, the general government. Yeah, that Frank. Exactly, Holiday Punch. The general government of Poland. That's who the other Frank. And I'm forgetting his first name right offhand. Yes, there's definitely 2 Franks. So Karl Hermann Frank is one guy. He was Sudeten German, we'll call him, and never really did anything outside of the Czech. Yeah, Hans Frank, that's it. Holiday Punch. I know a lot of these people read a lot, but I got to sort of get reminded on the names. Hans Frank is the one for the general government there. Exactly, Holiday Punch. Okay, so we're still looking at getting started. We don't have any political power yet, so we can't make any of the changes. Again, I would have these things filled where appropriate. You know, maybe in 1936 we don't have some of these. Okay, so scientists, you know, Heisenberg and von Braun. But I would again do that. And again, by doing this here, this is not wrong. Fritsch was in charge of the army. Bloomberg was in charge of the armed forces, in effect, the defense or the minister of war. And Fritsch gets replaced by Brauhitsch. Bloomberg gets replaced by what was it? Keitel, I think. So this is not wrong. I just don't know if it's not having a defense minister is an interesting choice. And then we have army theorist, air theorist, and naval theorist. And yeah, starting in 36, probably neither of these men should be the theorist. Maybe if you created a more infantry-based theorist. And then here, just a sort of catch-all military high command. These are all the same slot, meaning you can have up to 6 out of this panel of possibilities. So that's a look at the government. Heydrich is Heydrich is no, he isn't in a choice of anything here. Like I say, for intelligence, I would have Heydrich as an intelligence choice, and I would have in 36. Okay, Frick is the interior minister, if I'm not mistaken, in 1936. But I think by 36, and you got to understand when you're trying to look at National Socialist Germany, the realities in 1933, because it's very early in 1933 that Hitler becomes chancellor. Hitler's just chancellor. There's still Hindenburg is president, the army, and Bloomberg and all those guys don't answer to the civilian government, which is Hitler. They answer to the president. Bloomberg is their own thing. So Hitler's gaining power all through this time. His final real big leap in actual gaining of power, in a practical sense, is the defeat of France. The National Socialist state still grows after that, but that's his real last big hurdle, that he's now become unquestioned leader of the Reich. And now I think it's because in 33, 34, you have a lot of different people in charge of the police. You have people like Wilhelm Frick, who's the Interior Ministry, but then you also have Göring, who is president of Prussia. So he's in charge of the Prussian police, which includes the Gestapo. The Gestapo are a sort of a political police in Prussia. Now, there's some of Prussia way out here, and there's, of course, East Prussia here. There's Prussia everywhere. The Nazis are the ones that rationalize the German state. And it is only a little bit later that the Gestapo moves into the SS. And eventually, basically, all the police powers come to Himmler and the SS, to the point that all police, including railway police, including fire police, are all under the SS. Not that all police are members of the SS, but the SS are in charge of all police, and all police generals, and it was a title, they were called generals. All police generals were also full members of the SS. To be a police general, you had to be a full member of the SS. So I think by 1936, Himmler is in charge of the police inside of Germany. Frick is still running sort of the Interior Ministry of the Interior, but it's more of like akin to the American Attorney General, in that it's more of, you know, the prosecutors and the judges and those types of jobs within it. And this is not an area that I've looked at. Hey, Sun Temple Radio. Yes, it's this new version of World Ablaze mod. So, yes, it's new, but the mod's been around for a while. New version of it. So Frick stays around for quite some time, and I sort of lose track of him as it. But I think by 36, he's had all of his police powers. You know, the police pulled away, but he's running, you know, like I say, the prosecutor's offices, who's appointing the judges, and all that type of malarkey. He's running that. So not that it's a wrong choice to have him here. I would just also at this point have Himmler as a real option, and maybe even start with him in office, and you can switch over to, when you get the political power, switch over to Himmler, is how I would set this up. Hitler was a thing even in 1912. Yes. It isn't. Oh boy, and again, I'm not always great on dates, where I'm good on order of events. Yeah, The SS starts out just as sort of a protection squad of SA men to protect Hitler and if other, people, primarily Hitler at the start, and it grows over time. It isn't independent really until 1934, I would say, independent from the SA as an independent organization. But yes, it goes back to about early in the 1920s. I don't know exactly the date of it. Werner von Fritsch replacement was Brauhitsch, I think. Yes. No, you're absolutely right, Holiday Punch. And how you doing, Starstreak? Okay, so that's sort of my look at the government. I know it's sort of long-winded, but I'm reviewing the mod here. What I think they're getting right and what I think they're getting wrong. So we are in January 1936, and let's go. And with all of that, I think we're going to end the episode, not the live stream. Yes, Night of the Long Knives, absolutely, Sun Temple Radio. I want to thank everyone who made it this far. If you haven't already, please lick that like button. It's tasty. And if it's red, smash the subscribe button. Want everyone to see you around in the future. And of course, post your thoughts, comments, corrections down below. Love everyone posting. See you next time for more, yes, more Hearts of Iron.